go to a particular power family, not political party. The Sarakis were in APP at the second of this democracy in 1999. I think it was Dr. Saraki the late Dr. Saraki that installed the late Lawal as governor of Kwara. They fell apart. In 2003, he went to the PDP.
He brought his son. Into the governorship and his daughter into the National Assembly. And in 2015, the son again. In 2000, I think it was in 11. In 2011, it was a game of father versus son. Father and daughter on one side and son on the other. And effectively that retired the father. Okay? And in 2015, the son moved into the APC as against the party where he was then, PDP. He had it. Now the story has changed. So we have seen several things, several slogans, Otoge, Otunya, Efete, Otope. It's been a very
interesting. Let me tell you guys, Gani Mohammed. From all these things, would you say that if you look at 2015 and 2019, would you say that Nigerians have in a way grown more politically?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I can say generally that there is a shift in the pattern and the frame of our voting system in Nigeria. Like Barrister has just said, structures have been dismantled, new traditions have been emplaced. Like he mentioned Kwara, even the Lagos, you know, it took more than the usual method of winning election before the traditional authorities there could make the victory. When you go to Ogun State, the governor lost. Ikube governor lost. Same thing in Imo State. Then you mention River State. You look at the River State. River has always remained the sole point of our political history for a very long time. Even when there was only one political party in Rivers, they would still fight. I remember in the days of NPA, day of Memphis Okido, they still fought. When it was PDP against PDP, they still fought. So perhaps because of their history, you know, the people of River State are people that have been raped by the society. They live below poverty level. They live inside a degraded environment. Their farms, their waters, their fishes and everything are being destroyed. They live, even they compete with themselves individually.
But Bayelsa is also in a way like that. If you're talking about the environment, Bayelsa is also like that.
But Bayelsa is a homogeneous society. While River State is heterogeneous, you see, even Yoruba has community there. Hausa has community. Remember, Port Harcourt is not a traditional community. It is just a seaport where everybody came around to live in. It's more like Kaduna State. And Port Harcourt has...
Or a place like Ore.
Like Ore. Ore has indigenous person.
But it's not
the minority.
But
Port Harcourt has no... no owners. No indigenous owners in Port Harcourt. So everybody came, Ikwere, whatever, but when it fell into a region, maybe preferably the Ikwere, the whatever, they say, okay, it's their region. And because of that, and because of poverty, it sounds like an irony. When Port Harcourt received this quantum of allocation from Federation, because that's where the resources goes to the state from Federation account. If Port Harcourt Rivers received this quantum of allocation from the federal government and the society is still poor, the nexus of poverty is established and oiled by the political elite in River State. And those are the elites that normally fight. And unfortunately, in our society, the elite use two tools to destroy us. They use religion and they use tribe, ethnicity. Those are the two tools. And they have gotten the resources, they have exploited the system to the extent that they have gotten enough resources to whip off these tools, to oil it, to deploy it, and to unleash it on ordinary people. You imagine during the presidential election, 2 Fulani men were contesting and the killing were going on in Ikwere. Look at the distance. Several thousand, about more than 1,000 kilometers away. No Fulani in Parakot, no outside in Parakot as in one of them contesting. But the people who are fighting are the natives. When I say natives, the South people who live in Parakot. That is how much the elite has divided we ordinary citizens or the masses. And unfortunately, we'll continue to harvest this until the political elite releases its grip on ordinary people by way of reducing the poverty.
Do you see that happen anytime soon? At all. Do you see that happen? Comrade Gani Mohammed.
Yeah, it is going to happen. I'm not talking.
How is that going to happen?
I'm not talking as a socialist here, but I'm discussing as a realist.
Well, you know why I ask you that question? Yeah. Because you hardly see any society where the elite willfully relinquishes power to the masses. You hardly find that except people rise up in revolution to take power by force.
Yeah, you see, the social emancipation society, when society doing the conscious and necessary things to build themselves from this grip, they are usually, traditionally, I don't want to go into history of revolution, but the fact is that from what I know, what I have studied, is that there will be a class suicide, like somebody from the elite who will identify with the ordinary citizen and build the citizen.
That has happened. Yeah, you're right.
You see, I'm not trying to learn the image of Buhari here, but you see a kind of pattern. Buhari must have committed social suicide. He belongs to them up there, but the greatest war he faced during the election, and he will continue to face, is the class he belongs. He belongs to the elite, but he's fighting them, trying to put one or two things in order, so that the ordinary citizen, we have not been kitted. Because the manner through which we enjoy our independence as a nation did not prepare us for what we are facing. Unlike in South Africa, where they killed, they shot, and all manner of things.
There was revolution.
That was revolution. Everybody had become a comrade in South Africa.
And conscious.
Conscious of it. They didn't get it on a platter of gold. They worked for it. But ours is not like that here. So it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of education before we can attain this. And more importantly, you see that our policies as a government, the government deploys policies to further subjugate ordinary people, so that they can always go to them as a buffer to use them during the election period. That is why you see the quantum of money they deploy during the elections.
Okay, quickly, let me address one of the points you raised. You mentioned that while elections were going on across the country, 2 Fulani men and people were killing themselves in rivers, but not just in rivers. If you look at the statistics of death in all these elections, about 50 people died. If you look at the statistics, you have more people from the south. From the south. Why this struggle in the south? And if you ask an average southerner, he will tell you that the northerners are not politically enlightened, that they are illiterate and all of them. But these are the people who did not kill themselves, who did not murder themselves during elections, and then you find people who claim to be politically enlightened here, down south here, killing themselves during election. Why this struggle in the south?
Interesting. You see, I've always been saying this. We are working under a stereotype in this part of the country. I mean, the southern part of the country. When our former leaders will tell us that the northerners are goats, they are malus, they eat grass while we eat them. These people, when you look at their political leaders and how they place their people, you discover that they are more civilized politically. They are more conscious than we do in the southern part of the country. You remember during the Operation Wet here in the southwest, it was ignited by the northerners. They were not killing themselves. They sent us down here, and we are still saying they are not educated. Look at Kano. Kano voted for Buhari. But when it comes to the election of their primary constituency, they vote the Ganduje and the other man, Bala or whatever. The vote is so close now. The vote is so close.
PDP is leading. 43 local government declared so far.
All right. It's so close. Why Buhari led massively during just 2 weeks ago. You don't see that pattern in Southwest. In Oyo State, PDP won. During the few days ago election, the gubernatorial election, the state election, PDP still maintained that pattern. You don't see the sophistication in voting pattern in the South. It is in the North. They select where to vote, direction to vote to, who to vote for. Where here, it is a bandwagon thing. Once it goes this way, it must go that way, unless or except there is conscious and deliberately manipulative intervention to change the course of it here. Up there is different. We are not politically educated. That is why we kill one another here.
Okay, let me turn to Olumuyiwa. More than almost 48 hours after elections were conducted on Saturday, governorship election, we're still awaiting many of the results from many of the states, 29 to 48 hours after the election. How can Nigeria get past this archaic and primitive way of collecting results?
Well, thank you very much. For me, I feel, number one, INEC was not ready for this election. It's very glaring. If we look at the performance of INEC, the best way to look at it is this. Go back to 2015. Compare the election in 2015 to what we have today. And you would agree with me that there's no level of improvement. Okay, you could say it's still the same level, but it shouldn't be. 2015 election cost us about 0.8 billion naira. And this year's election did cost us about 240 billion naira. That's like times 2. So I have not seen any improvement. And I think there is need for us to start up our electoral system and introduce electronic voting and electronic transmission of results. That is the best way to go. You need to be at the coalition center during the presidential election. Reporters, agents had to sleep overnight. People do not have to suffer like that. You could easily have transmitted the result from the polling unit electronically straight to the INEC head office in your state and then to Abuja. But I believe they deliberately stuck to this system, this electoral process, because some people, I feel it's a way of creating room for some sort of manipulation, if I'm to be sincere with you. Why would you want to create room for manipulation when you could send it electronically? Fine, some people are claiming anything electronic or internet, whatever, could be hacked. But the chances are limited. There's nothing that cannot, there's no system that cannot be broken. What you do is you limit the chances. But we are not doing that. We still want to be counting papers one by one and all that. And doing things electronically is actually cheaper. We were the so-called card reader. We could have a bigger form of it, whereby people, thumb print, yeah. And it brings out the logos of the party, and you press it just like our ATM machine, the way we touch it, and everything is stored. If you like, take away the voting machine.
They do that in Ghana already.
Okay, now you just, I'll come back to you. You just listen to him. Yes. I was listening to the INEC chairman, his daily briefing before the election, and he said INEC printed 421 million ballot papers for this election, for the presidential, National Assembly, governorship, and House of Assembly elections. 420-something million ballot papers. That's huge. And then you have a system where people from the polling unit are taking paper to the rack, and then they take some other papers to the local government. Then they, for instance, look at the presidential election. INEC said they were waiting for people from all the states. I would say the weather was not good. They had to wait for a favorable weather because they were bringing papers. These were results that people were already putting on the social media. you would want, and at every time in Nigeria, people are always, I just said moments ago that 50 people so far have been killed in this election. And that is because there are ballot papers to snatch, there are ballot boxes to be burnt or to snatch. What some people, like you said, they have suggested the electronic voting, though with its attendant risk anyway. Do you subscribe to these as a solution to all these killings and this quantum of papers that we carry around during elections?
I made a satirical post on social media, I think whether yesterday or the previous day. I said, now voting has ended. The real election now starts at collation centers, because that is where elections, that's where things are decided these days. The voter, ideally, elections should be conducted at voting points, not at collation centers.
Yes.
In our NBA election, of course, it came with its attendance issues. We use electronic voting these days in electing our national executives. Of course, there may be issues. No human system is perfect. There has been, I think, for some years now, we sitting in the studio, I'm sure we belong to the a bit older school than the present generation. We wrote, we shaded when we were writing JAM. These days, it's now CBT. It's computer based. And so far, we've not heard of some of these funny stories we are hearing. I think overnight, we heard of somebody who outdid Orubebe. Orubebe now has a superior. There was a guy in Imo that went as far as tearing collated results. Orubebe didn't do that. So we have an improved Orubebe this time. Also, a local one, maybe at a state Orubebe. But I think he outdid what Orubebe did 4 years ago. What I'm saying here is the world is moving. Well, thank God, when the National Assembly proposed amendment to the Electoral Act to accommodate, if not electronic voting, electronic transmission of results. Of course, electronic transmission does not still take away the fact that agents will still have copies of the result. But let it go into a central collation point. I followed the American election very religiously. Till tomorrow, I did not know the equivalent of INEC chairman that declared Donald Trump as winner.
No one. You will not even see them.
I did not know.
You will not see them.
I did not know.
Nobody focuses on them.
I was awake. I kept vigil.
Maybe you'll see the electoral commissioner.
South Carolina has come in. CNN will tell us. New York has come in. We are expecting the swing states. Florida is soon come. California will soon come. And the natural order of things at a point, Mrs. Clinton put the court through. Because
to congratulate Trump.
That's
another thing you hardly find in Nigeria. You must go to court.
It's a scarce commodity. We don't congratulate people here, even when it is clear that people have lost.
Yes.
There was a tree that was recently cut down in Ondo State. There was a political tree that was recently, that has been cut down to size in Ondo State. A tree that was really rampaging the state up till as recently as 2 years ago. I heard that the tree was almost complaining of the result, even when it came to in the exam or in the election. So it's so interesting that unless and until, coming back to it, the National Assembly proposed amendment to the Electoral Act, to accommodate electronic transmission of results. Of course, maybe because of the relationship that was between the executive and the legislature, the National Assembly, because they were not in good terms with the executive, people read meanings to it that maybe they were trying to use it to undermine or to ambush the president. Thank God, election has come. And the president election has come and gone. The other elections have come. They have not gone yet. Now, it is time we can now begin to think 2023. We can begin to think of improving on the system. Kenya here, when issues arose after the election of Odinga and Raila Odinga, the other man, and I've forgotten his name. Uhuru Kenyatta. That was when we had issues of computer-generated president. You know, so if Kenya can go digital, can go as far as getting their elections conducted and results handled electronically, then what's wrong with Nigeria? So between now and 2023, thank God the APC is now the majority in the National Assembly in absolute majority. So it is now easy for the national, or either the presidency or the National Assembly to come up either to revive that bill or to fine-tune it to the point of now ensuring President Buhari will not be seeking a third term. The constitution does not allow him. So now that obviously we have a new president in the next 4 years. So we should now be thinking of improving on what the one name we keep reoccurring in our electoral history in Nigeria, Asasiru Jega. That man left a template. Like I said, if you cannot build on it, don't lower the standard. So by now we should be going higher than what Jega left. The success of this election will be determined by the number of litigations that will come out of the election.
Okay, quickly. You just mentioned, talking about laws now, talking about bills.
Yes.
In Nigeria, if you mentioned the US. In the US, if elections are conducted, you have people making predictions.
Yes.
While results were being collated, making speculations on TV, on radio.
Yes.
In Nigeria, that's not the issue. It's a different ball game here. Even though there are results on the social media, INEC and NBC will keep telling you, disregard those results, it's a crime. And if you go ahead and say anything about those results on here, NBC will fine you. It's 500,000 naira. Talking about bills, do you think that in the 21st century, this is not a cake? Can Nigeria claim to be going into the future while we are still very much in the past?
Why are we?
How does that work?
Why are we in the past? We're in the past because of our approach, because of what we consider politics and leadership to be. In the US that we're talking about, it's all about service. Okay? Here is business. People sell houses to attain political office because they know one. Without sounding immodest and whatever, all the 26 ladies and gentlemen that were elected into the assembly in Ondo State, for example, day before yesterday, I'm sure from today, bank managers will have gotten their
approaching them, yeah, they would
giving them all sorts of facilities because now status has changed, level don't change. So now they become it's a different. I read about the congressman in the US. Who was living in his office? Who was living in his office?
Not just one. Yeah. There are many of them
the guy was
who sleep in their
That's
office.
Ryan.
And they asked him why. He said, "I already bought a house for my family in my state. I can't afford another one."
That's Ryan.
So
That's the speaker.
That's the speaker.
Ryan.
That's the speaker.
But the councillor in your village, in my village, will not only build 2 wives, you marry at least 2-3 wives before leaving office. At least I used to have an ebon like that. You know, so that's the system. That's what keeps us behind. That's what makes political offices to be so volatile. That is why we have rivers. That is why we have all the crises we are having. Like I was joking with somebody said, if in the southwest, if you hear the sound of a gun, everybody rushes home. But in rivers, if you hear the sound of a gun, guys will come out and say, that thing AK-47, I mean, which one? They want to know where the thing is coming from. So that there, because of what is involved, there they spend all your money. So politics here is business, and that is why we are reluctant in moving with the world. That is why we are reluctant.
Okay, let me turn to Comrade Gani Mohammed. Comrade Gani Mohammed, can Nigeria?
Maybe become the
maybe it's in the process.
I did 5 years.
Okay.
We're talking about the future, and we're talking about moving with global trends. But yet we're in the past. We're living in the past. Every of our things, especially we're talking about elections now. How can we get out of the woods on this matter?
Yeah, the first thing is the commercialization of our electoral processes and the elective positions or appointive positions. You hear the quantum of allowances these people go home with. You start wondering that what is the cost? That is one leg. Another leg is accountability. In Nigeria, we don't ask questions. The few people that ask questions are called names. They even sponsor people against you to harass you. You come here. There was a time I was running a program on this frequency. Everybody was talking to my parents. They were talking to my wife that I was risking my life. That I was not only risking my life, that I was risking the life of others and people who are close to me. That this political class will kill me or kill anybody around me to take pound of flesh. I remember this late Professor Pius Adesami. that they crashed and died yesterday.
Too sad.
Was he used to write very well every day on social media. He was writing about a woman, one Mrs. Jimada, during her death. She said the mother was saying that you are in Canada, you kept writing about Nigeria, that got her worried. You are now coming to Nigeria to deliver lecture, and in their top, that is the top of this political class. And I know you will be telling them what they don't want to hear, that Bola, they will kill you. That is the concept, that's the form, that's the structure in Nigeria. You ask questions about how people are managing the state or public resources, it becomes an issue. The next thing is that I once be told by a very highly placed Nigerian who called me and said, Gani, you better come around and let us assist you. And stop talking. Yes, something like that. That is the attitude. And you know the quantum of poverty in our land. People are extremely poor and they depend on politicians. That is more reason why they will have to give you 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira to vote against or even vote for a candidate you don't even know. People will walk with their voting card or PVC to the polling unit expecting somebody to approach him or her to be paid to vote. Maybe 2,000, 3,000 naira. And that will be some other time, maybe next 4 years. That is poverty. Like he said in the United States, you don't even know that they are voting. I've been in the United States on occasions when they are...
Some people will even vote 2 weeks before the election.
Yeah.
3 weeks before the election. And they will vote in the diaspora.
They will even tell you that they vote in that restaurant. There's a polling booth in that restaurant. So or they say there's somewhere in the bank there. People just go, you come out, not because out there is service. It's not business. Until we change it. And how do we change it? Number one, reduced, if possible. Take away the allowances. Don't pay governors. Don't pay ministers. Don't pay members of a legislative arm of government.
Allocation, will they not steal the allocation?
And their work contracts.
I'm coming to that. If you are willing, if you are ready, like we said, the Speaker of the United States of America, Ryan, before Pelosi, I mean, the honorables in our Abuja, the equivalent of the National Assembly in Abuja, they were sharing a flat in Washington, D.C. He said at a time he was sleeping in his office because he could not afford to pay for pay for a house or rent. He had to call other honorables or congressmen that let's come together, let us rent a flat. You take a room, I take a room, you take other room, 3-bedroom flat. Because the payment is low. That is why they say that the senator did not give me money. The rep did not give me money. Because we know what you go home with. Allowance of a senator in Nigeria, that is out of pocket, something you put equivalent of impress, is 30 million naira per month. And what do you do there? You go to the chambers maybe twice a week. You go there, some people will not even come. Others will be sleeping.
Some will even sleep.
That is those who endeavor to be there. Some will be elsewhere. And you go home with 30 million as
and maybe you don't know, they even get committee allowance, sitting at the committee level, because I know. Some of them, they get sitting allowance at the committee level.
For not sitting.
For not sitting. And all this manner of what they will still go to parastatals, go to minister and be harassing them and say that they must do this contract. They must do that. They must get this, they must get that. That kills the sense of service. And that will continue to push the system to the edge we are. And the resultant effect is poverty. Only a few will be. But I want to send the warning to them now. I have been saying this forever. By the time ordinary people in Nigeria can no longer eat, they will eat them. But the judge was saying this.
members of House of Assembly, National Assembly members, their consideration is not performance. They will say, for a very long time. At the end of the day, you find a member of a House of Assembly who cannot even string 2 sentences together in English language.
You see, this thing crossed my mind this morning. This morning when I woke up, because I do it every time in the night of the morning, thinking about Nigeria. Looking at the processes or system as a whole, I look at how even in the party politics, I do politics. I'm a politician. In the party politics, you see people who are delegates, who were elected at the party level, not at the general elections. The people at the level, they say that this time I want to buy fridge, I want to buy television. Those are the conditions for you to emerge as candidate of your party. The way out is this. The way out of determining candidates of parties that, number one, we have gotten a step forward of that. There are many political parties now. If they don't allow you on this platform and you know that you can go it, you go to another one. But the issue of
what if you do not have the funds?
Issue of fund is another thing. That's a stage. But let me tell you one thing. At a time in this part of the world too, election were war, battle. People will be grouping bad boys, grouping weapons, amassing weapons to contest election. But that is going down, no doubt. That is not, we now move to buying votes. And I believe it will go away too. Within, say, in the next election, 2023, that may not be as prevalent as we have now. Because we know we have elected people who bought vote from us and we regretted it. You look at the last presidential election in Ondo State, where I witnessed, there were few deployment of financial resources here. Not as serious as in the past, but the last election, resources were hugely deployed.
In the House of Assembly?
In the House of Assembly. Resources were hugely deployed. And when I look at it, I see it's an effort in futility. Good. Anybody will emerge. But once they get to that House of Assembly in Ondo State or anywhere in Nigeria, the another phase of buying and selling
will begin.
Yeah. So by next year, Ondo State will be having gubernatorial election.
Yes.
And I told a friend that the result of that last House of Assembly election is not a popularity test for the governor. It is not. Yeah, the party APC has 23.
PDP has 2. That's in PDP won in Akoko Northeast and Idore. And Zenith Labour Party won in Ondo West.
One. Yeah, the remaining APC. I told that friend that this is not a popularity test for the governor. No. It was an individual election. Somebody in my constituency was fighting a battle of life. Good enough, he got resources, assistant, and he won. Ditto for other local government, they won around. Those 2 isolated places, or few isolated places, let's say 3, you know how it went. In the Akoko Northeast, the man that won there had been there all along. The man who was defeated, whose resources could not assist, he had been there for he's attended the 3rd term. And there are some primordial nativity issue and the rest of it. Then they just had a senator from that local government. And the sympathy of this bandwagon. Then the Senate won, Ondo West won. You know, they have a general there who heard that it was part of the whole arrangement. Perhaps they ceded that place to him. That's settled. But when you look at it holistically, you discover that it was individual who wanted a support from the governor, and he got it.
Okay. Okay, because of our time, let's look at Oyo. The APC lost Oyo in the Southwest. Though the APC is likely to win other states in other places. For instance, the PDP was in charge in Gombe, and the APC has won that state. Now, looking at the Southwest, do you think that the PDP is capable of reasserting its control or relaunching itself in the Southwest from Oyo State by Mr. Wale Abimbola?
Well, it will depend on a lot of factors.
What are these factors?
Oyo was lost because majorly I don't live in Oyo, but as someone who follows things, I observe that Mr. Ajimobi did not exhibit enviable human relation characters. In some of his outbursts, of course, it dropped off even on him as a sitting governor. He lost a senatorial election.
And he lost his polling unit twice.
So I think Oyo was more like a protest vote, and it's left to the other governors in the Southwest to really to wake up, to learn from Ajimobi. Ondo State did it 2 years ago. There was a protest election in Ondo State.
Sure.
That caused that gentleman, that's the senior advocate of Nigeria, that cost him that election. It was a protest against the then incumbent. So generally, I think the Southwest, whichever way we may look at it, that degree of sophistication is still manifest in the way we do things, save for some this new fad of vote trading. I don't call it vote buying, because if there's no seller, there won't be a buyer. So essentially, it's vote trading. So I think it will depend on the man at the head of affairs in all the states. Two, it will depend on how they manage even the internal workings in their parties. Because some of these governors, when they become governors, they become emperors. Look at Ogun. I think, if you ask me, I would say APC won Ogun because PDP did not manage itself well too. Because there was this issue between Adebutu and Buruji.
And even Daniel.
And Daniel too. Endorsed the candidate of
the DG of Atiku campaign endorsed Mr. Abiodun, the APC candidate in APC.
Okay, on a final note, before we go, Mr. Olumiyiwa Babalola, what do you think the PDP can do before 2023 to reassert itself over the APC? I'm talking, but nationally now, I'm looking at Nigeria as a whole.
Now,
presidential elections.
I'm not a member of PDP, but I'll speak frankly as a Nigerian. If PDP is ready to play the part of an opposition, well,
a credible one.
Now that's where I'm going. They need to rebrand, and what's the best way to rebrand? They need to start up a politics of the people. They need to let in new people into their party, and let the people of Nigerians understand now this is what we are about. You understand? You can't keep dragging the old logs. If you look at the elections, the just concluded elections, you would see people have some sort of opinion, perception about PDP. So, and that thing is really working against them.
I have something to say about that.
And I think it's a work from the APC, from all the propagandas in 2015, and that thing refuses to leave the PDP. So they need to understand, like, the best way to do this thing is to show Nigerians that we are better than APC, is to put credible people together, take us forward. You don't put people together because they have huge bank accounts so they can fund campaign. You need to come to Nigerians and tell Nigerians elections, politics must be in a different way. We must input some level of morals into our politics. PDP is losing big time because Nigerians are beginning to view that party as a party with less morals when you compare them with APC. This is the major thing PDP is losing out. And they refuse to accept that.
Comrade Gani Mohammed, is there anything PDP can do differently before 2023 to get back on its feet?
Yeah, I suggested to some of their leaders because we are friends. What I think PDP needs to do now is to change that name.
To change its name?
To change its name and become a new party. Because when you look at it, the gladiators in PDP are already in APC. If the DG campaign of Buhari could sit back in a campaign and say that it was PDP that destroyed Nigeria, he was Speaker of PDP for 8 years. He was governor of PDP 8 years.
Yes. For the whole 60 years.
60 years he was there. But immediately he moved to APC. He turned around to say PDP destroyed Nigeria. Mostly Obanikoro is in APC. A lot of them are already in APC. And then the same people will go around now and tell you that it was PDP that destroyed party. When you look at all these people telling you that it was PDP, and they were in PDP for that 16 years, they are only changing. It's just like a player of Man U who moves to Barca and start playing back. So it's as simple as change your name, become a new party. If they say PDP destroy Nigeria, join them to say PDP destroy Nigeria. It's not power party.
Thank you very much, for coming on today's edition of the Roundtable. Comrade Gani Mohammed, thank you very much. And Mr. Olumiwa Babala, thank you very much. This is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of the Roundtable. My name is Timothy Danes. Thanks for listening.